Hi, everybody, it's Patrick, and tonight, this Thursday night, I wanted to show you my favorite books from my childhood. And I was a child in the 70s and 80s, but these books are really from my 70s childhood. And I believe all of these themselves were hand me downs from my parents, and I think these are from the 50s. But I inherited them, and I loved these books from the age of 2.5 until 4 or 5 years old. I looked at these constantly, and it's just some simple books here, but I think I just liked the pictures, and they sort of shaped some things about me that I'll go into. The first one I want to show you is called America on Parade, and it's stories from our country's past, adapted from American Heritage, which was a popular magazine. Um, it's a special bonus selection of the Weekly Reader Children's Book Club, and I'm not sure. I guess my mother had gotten this book, and yeah, well, this copy is from 1958, so obviously this is a hand-me-down. But with just opening it up, I remember all of these pictures, and mostly I just liked the pictures. I don't know if I actually really read too much of the stories, but I absorbed it because, like, this story is about how the Vikings might have discovered America, and that's something I was always fascinated in. There was a movie called The Norseman that we used to watch all the time. It came on TV all the time. It had Lee Majors, and it was about the Vikings exploring America. So I think I probably kind of gleaned some of that from this book. And then The Secret Life of the American Indian. I mean, just looking at these pictures brings me back to my childhood. Um, this picture in particular. Now, I used to watch this movie called Blackbeard's Ghost, and I really loved it. So I would refer back to this book as a child to read about Blackbeard, and this is a picture of him, and he's a lot more scary looking than Peter Ustinov was in that movie. He has all these pistols on this belt, and he would light matches under his hat, and it would make this cloud of fire and smoke. So he was, much more terrifying pirate than Peter Ustinov. So I was sort of obsessed with Blackbeard until I found out that he was really kind of an awful person, and in the Peter Ustinov thing, he was kind of a lovable older pirate, but in real life, he was a young man, and he was just pretty brutal. But it has like all these beautiful pictures about pirates and the American coast. And Bonnie and Mary Read. I remember this picture, the two female pirates. And I don't know if they've ever made a movie about them, but yeah, they were. I mean, look at this picture. She's got this bloody sort of Middle Eastern sword, and she's carrying an axe. I mean, they look like they mean business. Eli Whitney's Machine, the Cotton Gin, Washington's Spy at Trenton. These are just basically little stories. And, it's written in the 50s, so it was written from that point of view and that context. So these are stories that you wouldn't, at least today, would be certainly written much differently. And as a kid, Mostly I was looking at the pictures. And as we continue to cut through this, I'm going to show you some of my favorite pictures coming up. It's naval stuff. Lots of... to be honest, in all honesty, I didn't really care so much about the naval pictures. I loved this picture right here. The buffalo hunter, painted by an unknown artist in the 1840s. Really always loved that picture. And it's funny because whenever I see buffalo, I always kind of think of walking food nuggets. So that's one of the ways this picture influenced me. I always feel like I should shoot an arrow in them, although I would never do that because I really like them, you know, and I love animals. But it's just, this picture definitely made an impact on me. I really always loved these kind of pictures about the West and stuff. And I've always been interested in the West. My adulthood, I've always studied and loved to read about the West. So naturally, these are pictures I really, really liked. Frederick Remington and just these dramatic pictures. Wow, I mean, that sort of lonely Western, you know, theme. You know, one man standing out there and just the horizon, everything empty, and it's, you know, I live on the east, so when I go out west, sometimes it's amazing to see all that flat again. This is about the mountain men. Another thing I was always interested in, like Jim Bridger and Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett and all of those guys. This is The Trapper Returns, and this painting, I think this is Jim Bridger. The Trapper or Long Jinks. It doesn't say who it's supposed to be. I don't know if you know anything about Jim Bridger. He used to be, well, when I was a kid, more people knew who he was. The last time I've heard a reference to him recently was in that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio about Hugh Glass, who was attacked by the bear. And I think it was called The Revenant or something. And Jim Bridger was one of the characters in it. He was, of course, much younger at that time. He was Pathfinder of the West, John Charles Fremont, Civil War officer too. That's a beautiful picture. Built for speed. More naval stuff. Generals of the Union. I always liked that picture. You know, he's got Grant, Sherman. That's like an order of importance. You know, and it spreads out. You know, you've got Meade. The one who was at Atlanta who died. He was Sherman's friend. That's I think that's McClellan, or maybe it's Winfield Scott Hancock. That's Custer. Oh, forgive me, it's been so long since I've studied. One of these is Sheridan. I'm embarrassed. There was a time I would have been able to name all of these generals. I'm only picking out the most famous ones now. Pretty sad. Generals of the Confederacy, Lee. Oh, I think that's Jeb Stuart or Longstreet. That's Ewell. We're missing. I don't see Jackson. That's Beauregard. That's Jeb Stuart. So that's got to be Longstreet. I think that's Jackson. maybe that's Pickett right there. There was a time like I could have named all these guys too. Like I said, it's sad. Okay, this is my absolute favorite picture right here for some reason. I This is the picture that I always remember from this book because I just thought this was the most fascinating picture. It's this old country store, and you can look inside and see all the things like potatoes. There's fig Newtons, which I thought was strange, but they had them. Regular old crackers. Like this is crackers, or maybe these are hardtack kind of crackers. Biscuits of some kind. Eggs, fabric, coffee. I just loved this picture. This is like, to me, I've always found the history of food really fascinating, and so seeing that, I really like. This is an old advertising card, and in some future videos we'll talk a little bit more about that. This is called a trade card, where we get the word trading card. It's derived from trade, and also because people did trade them. But if you really get down to it, even though trade cards became trading cards, the real trading cards were tobacco cards. That's where we originally got baseball cards and football cards, and we'll get to that in a later video. But here's more trade cards, which is really interesting. I have a few, and I'll show them to you. And they had artwork or some kind of joke on it or something to sort of, and then they would advertise their business. This is just old advertising. I really liked all this stuff. It's an old picture of a train. For some reason, I really love this picture. I always kind of liked trains. I've always wanted to take a long train ride, you know, like with a sleeper car. It's something I've never done. When the old streets talk, remember talking about street vendors, like a root beer vendor. Look at that, and he's got all the taps right there. Can you imagine that? Whale oil man. A meat vendor. A baker cart selling baked goods. The great bicycle craze, you know, when bicycles, the big wheel bicycles and everything came out. The proud fighting fireman. Well, my dad was a fireman for a while, so I was naturally thought this was interesting. And the Birdmen, the original pilots, and those original old airplanes, and then we get nice scenic mountainscape in the last page. So as you can see, I really liked this book. Now the next one I really liked, and I have to be very careful because the spine is very loose on it. It's Tall Tales of America, and I hope I can show you all the pages. And interestingly, it's from the same weekly reader book club. And in the inside cover, we see the Tall Tales that we're gonna get: Paul Bunyan, Johnny Appleseed, Sam Patch, John Henry, Pecos Bill, Davy Crockett, Old Stormalong, and Joe Mazurak. And I'm not sure who the guy with the beaver is. I can't remember. Anthony and the Moss Bunker. Okay. 1959. Obviously was a hand-me-down. Pecos Bill, and I remember all this artwork. Pecos Bill was like the tall tale cowboy. And all of the, this is basically just a compendium of all of the tall tale stories. Like he's got a rattlesnake lasso, and they were just silly stories. And I don't even know if people even still know what these are. But as a kid, in the 70s and 80s, you know, and part of our school curriculum, we talked about the tall tales. And the idea is they were legends, but they were, you know, kind of like exaggerations of possibly real people. And I don't know if they still teach this or not. But it was a whole style of storytelling. Because obviously, Pecos Bill didn't really. There was no one like this, although that is a really cool picture. So, I mean, and the idea is all of these tall tales, like she's riding a catfish. And the closest thing I could think of recently that's like this is that movie Big Fish that's sort of about a guy who told tall tales. But I don't even know if they even, made the connection in that movie. Anthony and the Moss Bunker. I never read this one because I don't think I was interested in it. I guess it's about a beaver. But it might be interesting to read now as a grown-up. Old Stormalong, a seafaring one. I thought this picture was cool because, he is, riding this ship, and he's a giant. And I used to love these pictures. And I'm like, how did he get that tattoo? And he's a giant. And, all the tall tale guys were supposed to be giants, too. Which, if you think about it, if you really think about history and the history of civilization, a lot of cultures tell stories of giants who lived on the earth, whether it's in tall tales like this or, talking about mythology. It's a common theme that you see. So it's interesting that we have these giants in our American tall tales. It is really interesting. Johnny Appleseed. Kind of a religious sort of metaphor, I believe. Johnny Appleseed. Getting a little coffee. And I think, once again, Johnny Appleseed was based on a real person. Davy Crockett certainly was a real person. He was actually a politician. He was a congressman, and then he went to Texas, and he died at the Battle of the Alamo. And I don't think he rode lightning bolts. And I don't think he danced with alligators or anything, but still, Sam Patch's last leap, I guess I think this is a true story too. I think there was a guy named Sam Patch who did die by leaping down Niagara Falls. I'm pretty sure this is 100% based on truth. Paul Bunyan, the lumberjack with the giant blue ox named Babe. I always wondered why he was blue, but Paul Bunyan was amazingly large. He could chop down a whole forest with one. And when I think about him now, I think of the Bounty paper towel guy, or not sure. That they said he drug his pick and it made the Grand Canyon, and he spilled his ketchup and it made the Red River. He burned biscuits and it made the Rocky Mountains. John Henry was a real railroad man, and he was the fastest and the strongest, and he raced a machine, and he ended up beating the machine, but it made his heart explode. It was a sad tall tale. The Steel Man. I used to love this picture here. I just thought this was so crazy. He was just sticking his hand in melted steel. And that was my Tall Tales book. So I'm going to have to touch that up with some glue or something. Okay, next, I want to show you these. These are, let me show you the order that I remember them. This is the Junior Instructor book. These are ones I found, not the originals. These are not in such good shape. This one's almost serviceable. It's like in order of how bad they are. The green being in the worst shape. I don't even know if I'm going to keep these, but I do want to show them. And I loved the cover, first of all. That was almost like wood. It's so hard and painted red or yellow or green, and has all of these really, really cool etchings in it. See? I mean, I loved the cover so much. This is a hard cover, if there's ever one. It's like stone. It's so hard. And the back of the book is just this leather-like finish, and I always liked that. And I loved opening this book and looking at the pictures. It has a lot of artwork done by a kid who owned it before, but it still looks just like mine. And the end papers is a circus scene, and I loved this. I would actually have memories of going to a circus when I was a kid, which is, I'm kind of glad I have those memories, because that's something kids won't even ever get to experience now. I mean, it's I get it. I understand the thing about animals and stuff, because I love animals, and I understand, but it is sort of sad because it is something that's gone forever. And we get to the Junior Instructor, a treasure house of adventure for boys and girls. Edgar Allan says it's fun to learn. And all this artwork with elves, and this was printed in originally 1936, and this version is from 1962. And it starts out with talking about the circus and the different clowns, the hobo clown, all the animals you could see, and the tightrope acts. My memories of the circus are I remember going, and the first thing we saw was some kind of racetrack thing. I mean, this was way back. This was maybe 1976, and we went, and the first thing we saw was like this weird racetrack thing that was like a stunt, but I was so young I didn't even quite grasp whatever was going on. Then we went into the tent, and we saw the clowns, and there was animals and stuff. And I remember a clown came up to me and was trying to do something I can't remember, and I started crying, and then he started crying, which I thought was strange. So I had these pictures, had all these bird identifying pictures. So as a kid, I would see these pictures of birds, and you could learn their names. It's very simple teaching. The style of teaching in this book was very simple. It was just a section on the circus, and then a section on birds, and then with poetry and facts and coloring pictures. And it says, trace this pattern, transfer to watercolor paper, and give it to a child to color. So I probably, in my version, I think I colored right into the book, and this kid did too. How could you resist that if you're a kid, to see a coloring picture and not coloring it? I mean, see, Lisa colored this. I liked this picture of the cardinal a lot. Every time, even today, whenever I see a cardinal, it's like a special occasion. I'm like, Mary, look, it's a cardinal. We will look at them as if we'd never seen one before. As if we haven't seen them 100 times, we still stop what we're doing to look at the cardinal. This is really kind of strange. A lot of bird pictures. A little improvised bookmark. The bald eagle, of course. And see how they talk? Like, they were teaching kids, even if they couldn't read, they could see this picture and tell that bird was important to America. And that was an interesting way of teaching. More about birds. There's some music about birds. I forgot how much of this book was about birds. Now here we get to how to write my letters. and shows you how to write notes as a child. I used to think that was good handwriting. Lots of different ways of writing cursive, which I hope they still teach kids how to do that. Every now and then I just write in cursive just sort of practice. And we get to some stories. These are, just children's stories, nursery rhyme kind of stuff to teach kids to read, and I remember all of these pictures. And then, of course, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, the Old Lady in the Shoe, Mother Hubbard and her cupboard, Cinderella. That's the Jack and the Beanstalk, I think. No, that's Simple Simon. Let's see. Healthy eating habits, food and party clothes. I used to think this was my grandfather for some reason. I don't know why. Then again, on I think it was Taster's Choice coffee packages, I thought the picture of the guy drinking the coffee was my dad too, but that was weird. Jack Sprat, and I used to like their cat. Crazy Quilt Animals. Some cool old style artwork. And stuff about Native Americans. All the pictographs, stories, and then sign language. Stuff about communication in different cultures. Transportation. Oh, that page is coming off. And let's see, it teaches you how to work and play with numbers using dominoes or pictures. So get to some sort of complicated stuff here. How to tell time, how to count money. You see how old this book is. You see the old coins, like the old nickel and pennies and dimes and everything. These are the old styles because this was originally printed in the 30s. And then we get to some songs, which people once upon a time knew how to sing. When I was in school, we were required to take music classes and learn how to read music. And even write. We had on our test, in school, we had to write music and stuff. So I don't know if they still do that. And I sure don't remember how to do it. I wasn't a big fan of it, to tell you the truth. How to draw. And here's famous pictures that children should know, like the Mona Lisa. You should know what that is. The Journey of the Magi. This one is the Eve of St. Nicholas, Christmas Eve. This is Francisco Jose de la Goya and Lucientes Don Manuel Osorio. It's the painting with the kitty cats. And this one is Peter Bruegel, The Harvesters. That's Edward VI. I know that one. He was the Henry VIII's son. Vermeer, famous one by Vermeer. Peter Paul Rubens and his wife. And this is basically like turns into an art book, so children can have some famous art. $19.95. And there's stuff about the flag and history told through stories. A lot of stuff about Jamestown, and we get back to the circus. So that's the first one I wanted to show you. The next one is the yellow one, as I used to call it, or book 1, book 2, book 2. I'm confused. It has the exact same etchings on it. It has this picture of a cardinal again, but it has completely different end papers, so I'm wondering if this is an earlier edition. Because there's the old birds that we saw. And here's the birdways again. I think this was actually an earlier edition, but it's funny that I had this yellow book too. And so there's a lot of the same stuff, but there's also some different stuff. Like there's a reading lesson. See, we saw the Goldilocks, but there's some different things. This is more like from the 30s, I think. The end papers are different. It's not as circusy. The paper feels different. It's not slick paper. It's rough paper. Here's the same communication chapter again. The transportation chapter. Work and play with numbers. We saw that. This is from the 30s, I believe. See the old money again. I showed you. I think they just updated it. This is the original. What's this? Dear Mrs. Peerley, I love you. You are a very nice teacher. Bye for now. Love you always. And she saved that from one of her students, which is really, really sweet. And look, the paintings again, but they're in black and white. They're not printed in color. So it's interesting to see what the 1930s edition of this book looks like. Not as many color plates, but a lot of the same stuff. And the end papers are a completely different scene, more like about the world and less like a circus. So, and this one is pretty beat up. Now, the final one is book 1. And this is from the 30s. It's very old. Same cover. It is in really rough shape. There is a improvised bookmark in the front. The end papers are just older, rough paper. Well, yeah, this is, look at the style. This, you could tell this is from the 30s. The colors that are here, the old tape holding it together. Some of these old pictures, oh my goodness, these are kind of amazing, actually. Delightful. I mean, this is some really good 1930s era artwork. And colored, nonetheless. It's really kind of special to look at this. The old cars. Wow, some of this artwork is really, really cool. It'd be ashamed to give it away because I'm afraid it's going to be trashed. And there's a lot of history and brilliant art in this, so I need to kind of figure out something to do with it. Wow. I mean, these are just really, really, really it's such a shame that this is in such bad shape. Basically, this one is just a storybook, and we have some more inserts. Open like a police looking for burglary info. Get Mama Mocha's coffee. That couldn't have been that long ago. Because Mama Mocha's isn't that old. Mama Mocha's is a good place to get some coffee here. A lot of stuff in here. Music, of course. And coloring. Wow. This looks like some ink or something spilled in it a long time ago. Well, interesting. Well, that about covers it for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. A little look back in my past here. And I hope you liked it. So, until next time, if you like my channel, please subscribe, leave a comment, give me a thumbs up, and click the bell icon. Alright, bye.